What a wonderful day was had by all at the big day out for Harold the Giraffe at the Ellerslie Racecourse. Well, the reason for this happy gathering of Harold and the kids is to celebrate another year of growth for the Life Education Trust in Auckland Central. What we're witnessing has to be one of New Zealand's most successful community stories. The rise and rise of the Life Education Trust. Though you may not be familiar with the name Life Education Trust, many parents and children are very familiar with the public face of the trust, Harold the Giraffe. Yeah, he's one cool dude. Harold is busy. He's got himself a great full-time job, visiting primary schools as the chief mascot for all 34 of the Life Education Trusts throughout New Zealand. He always has his best friends with him, who are called educators, and they have three main tasks. Number one, tell every child that they're special, they're unique. There never was, is now or ever will be again another you. Number two, tell the children that the human body is magnificent. Let's make sure everyone sees this magnificence and appreciates what we all have been given. Number three, we must support and respect each other, regardless of sex, race, religion or beliefs. There is of course much more, but those are the three main philosophies that Harold wants to tell every child he meets. For more information on Harold, don't forget www.harold.co.nz. But back to Auckland Central and Harold's big day out. Now, while Harold is having fun outside, the serious business of purchasing these large, expensive mobile classrooms and funding their operation continues on the inside. Yep, to make sure Harold is well fed with plenty of grass and leaves, all of the 34 regions throughout New Zealand get busy and creative doing the fundraising thing. And it can be fun. For region number 6, that's Auckland Central, the decision was easy. Let's go to the races, have a lovely lunch for the adults, let the kids have lots of fun and games with Harold outside in the sunshine, and let's call it Harold's Big Day Out. At the lunch was the founder of the Life Education Trust, Trevor Grice. Now back in 1987, some months before the stock market crash, when everybody had lots of money in their pockets, Trevor had just introduced Harold to New Zealand. Then came the crash, and suddenly things were different.
But the first meeting I ever addressed, it was arranged by the Women's Division Federated Farmers, Jean Sargent, and 3 people turned up, and with all my pride and everything like that, I said, this is a total waste of time, when we can't do anything. And she said, I never forgot this. It was my first lesson in humility, I think. And she said, Trevor, that's 3 more than we had before. And I felt about that big. So I thought, well, yeah, she's right.
From 3 people at that first meeting back in 1987 to 34 regional trusts operating in New Zealand today. Incredible growth. But it's a great cause and gives immense satisfaction to me. Seeing children begin to believe in themselves is worth all the hard work. One who's responded to that tap on the shoulder was Lance Hutchinson. Lance is Business Development Manager at the ASB Bank in Central Auckland.
I was approached to do it, so just myself on my own. So I agreed to accept that job, so I had to go and find some trustees to help me. Because we're a totally volunteer organisation. Every penny we raise gets pumped back straight into the children and our equipment. So I approached some local solicitors and friends around town that I knew from my work in the bank, and didn't have to twist their arms, but we sat around a dungeon working out how we could set this trust up from scratch. We've got 9 people on board. Then I went and tapped a few sponsors, local sponsors on the shoulder. I probably did about 30 to 40 presentations, different community groups, small companies, corporates, you name it, I did it. So I went and saw lots of them, and we got commitment from 10 of them to help us get on the road. So within 6 months we had an educator hired, our classroom on the road, 250,000 classroom, and started teaching initially 8,000 young children in our area.
So that's how it started in Auckland Central. One classroom now in action with another on its way. It's all made possible with fundraising events such as this lunch with trustees, volunteers, supporters and sponsors at Ellerslie. Trevor never ceases to be amazed at the wonderful work carried out by the regional teams.
And when I look at Lance Hutchison here today and his wife Kim and Auckland Central and what they've arranged here today, and Tuffin from Massey University said if life education went away today, I think we'd have to reinvent it.
Gracious words of thanks from the New Zealand founder of Life Education. But as Lance knows, one is only as good as the team that surrounds you. First, let's hear from one of the Auckland Central trustees, Adrian White.
I really love being a trustee on Life Ed because, well, Harold's such a cool guy, and everywhere you go, if you talk to anybody and you say one of the things that you do is, in your spare time, is working as a trustee for Life Education Trust, the first thing people say, oh, you mean Harold? Harold is so recognised around the schools and around people. That's what I just love to see, the goodness that Harold imparts to everybody.
Supporter and sponsor Glenn Peachy from Partridge Jewellers.
Grant and I selected Life Education Trust to be one of our charities, being based around children. The positive results that Life Education have had, and obviously improving every year, which we find fantastic.
A conclusion reached by many more of the generous sponsors in Auckland Central. To name a few, Frucor, who bring you Splash and Just Juice, Layla McDonald, Eggs Incorporated, N.R. Thompson, Remuera Lions, Auckland East and Newmarket Rotary Clubs. All this growth and activity is wonderful, but the important question remains, how effective is the Life Education Trust? Sure, the kids love Harold and his message, but does this message have a long-lasting effect?
Two very in-depth evaluations, and the Dr. Colin McJan at Massey University, and it said there was clear evidence that life education was changing children's attitudes and behaviour. And recently I was at the opening of the Marlborough Life Education mobile classroom, and I was prepared to give a speech, and right before me a 17-year-old girl got up. She had been in the Auckland area and she'd just won the biology prize for New Zealand. And she gave this talk. She said, when I was 9 years of age, my family was in a bad situation. And I was pretty down to it. And the mobile classroom visited our school, and Harold inspired me. And I was virtually on the brink of tears, and I think, well, there's nothing more left to be said. And I tell all our teachers, every class you teach, there will be 3 or 4 children sitting on that floor that'll be hurting like hell inside, and they're waiting for someone, for God's sake, someone in society to say, you're special, you're okay, everything's going to be all right. And the main thing we will be remembered by what we leave for our children. And I can say this because I came from a family originally of 9. 2 of them died, I understand, of malnutrition, and our father was killed when I was a little boy 4, 2 weeks off my 5th birthday, and we were extremely poor. And we found there was nothing like cold and hunger that put, and I mean my brother, who I adore, he's 3 years older than I am, and we learnt how to dig a garden. I was on a milk round to get free milk. I cleaned out fowl houses to get 4 dozen eggs a week. I did an after-school groceries round. And all strength comes, I think, from struggle, and we've got to teach our young people that. All of these things we're handing and throwing around now, they don't see that as something to help them. They see that as an entitlement, not knowing where it's come from. And so I think life education could be a flagship, not for trouble, but for a very beautiful change in thinking.